Here we go. One, two, three, uno, dos, tres. Hi, welcome to Control Talk, now your smart buildings video cast and podcast for the week ending August 23rd, 2020. This is episode 376, Trombones in the Big Parade. This is your HVAC and smart buildings video cast and podcast with myself and the man, the myth, the legend, the one, the only controls man from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The guy that has a point of view that informs, entices, and entertains. The one, the only Kenny Smyers, the control man from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Kenny, welcome to the show. Big dog.
Thank you very much, Eric. I appreciate those introductions, man. I'll tell you, I wake up and waiting to do Controltrends because I know you're going to bolster my defeated ego and bring it, resuscitate it. No, I'm just kidding. You know, the year is going by like lightning. I mean, we're at the end of August. I remember this time of year as a kid, I always got sad, you know, because pools are going to start closing, school's going to start up, you know, and my birthday is at the end of August. So I feel it like, you know, that's how quickly the year went, because it was my birthday. It's already going to be Halloween, Thanksgiving, and then the holidays. So
well, your birthday's coming up in a couple of days, isn't it? Less than a week.
Yeah.
So where should our community send birthday presents?
Don't bother. It's okay. I ignore them as best I can. They're they're a necessary evil, I guess, birthdays. But you know, back in the old days, they actually, you know, did it matter? You know, they had to be ambulatory. You had to be perfunctionary. You had to do things. If you lost your utility, then hell, you got put to the back and babies.
Dude. Speaking of that, I'm one hurting puppy, man. I tell you, I've got gout in my left toe, and if you never had gout before, it's like so painful that, you know, air just hurts on it. So gout in the left toe, and gout in my right heel. Nice. So needless to say, you know, it's hard for me to walk right now. So if I don't make any more sense than I usually do, which is generally the case, is because I've taken some pain meds to try to deal with this. And so I might be a little goofy today. So that could make the show very entertaining or really bad. So I'll let the audience decide on that, big dog. But
I'm going to go on entertaining. Yeah, I think we talked off air there for a little while. You had a good thing going. So just get back to it, baby.
All right. Well, I tell you what, we enjoy doing this. This is a lot of fun. And Kenny, we have a sponsor this week. Who's going to sponsor the show this week? One of our platinum sponsors.
Johnson Controls.
Yeah. Well, Johnson Controls is one of our platinum sponsors with our friends Chris Eichman, King Thomas, Gina Elliott, who, you know, since they've bought EasyIO, I think we could even throw her in that mix too. But, you know, great people, great products. JCI. Thank you very much for your sponsorship of the Controltrends Awards. And thank you very much for being a sponsor of this week's show, Control Talk Now, the HVAC and Smart Building Controls videocast and podcast, where we talk about smart building controls and HVAC. And speaking of that, Kenny, we had a chance to catch up with one of really the rising stars in our industry who is, you know, sort of changing the game, if you will. Somebody that we met early on and we watched his, I think was safe to say, meteoric rise to the stratosphere of innovation in our industry. A young guy, and I still think he's kind of maybe one of the best kept secrets in the industry. And we had a chance to catch up with him earlier in the week. He's going to talk about a product that he's developed and sort of the technology and his view on what's next in smart building controls. How about introducing him, Kenny Smyers?
Eric, I'd love to.
We have Alper Uzmezler. He is the managing partner of BAS Services and Graphics, LLC. And the thing about Alper is he looks so young, but he's actually been doing this for 18 years. He started that in 2002. And he's also founder of Anka Labs. In 2017, Alper founded the Anka Labs, and he's going to tell us a little bit about that. But most importantly, he's going to talk about his passion project, Sandstar. Welcome to the show, Alper.
Welcome, Alper.
Thank you for having me again.
Well, great to see you, brother. What have you been up to with this? First of all, how are you doing with this COVID thing? Obviously, you know, you got a new look. You look great. You look spectacular. But
thank you.
Outside of the new look, what have you been up to?
I've been working a lot on Anka Labs. day and night. We are basically trying to finish the edge analytics controllers overall tooling that it needs, because it's a new era and it requires a lot of applications in and around it. So we've been working on that a lot.
So I guess it's kind of nice to have a project you're passionate about with these COVID times out there. And how's Austin responding? Or describe Austin to us right now, Austin, Texas, where you're from.
It's going in and out, but my life hasn't changed for the last 3 years. So it was the same lifestyle, working on technology. So the only thing is that we are not going to trade shows anymore. So I'm just focusing on the technology and marketing now.
Yeah, and Alper, just think of ControlTalk now as being the modern day trade show. This is the new normal for trade shows. So we're going to give you an opportunity. Hopefully later today, you'll show some of the stuff you're up to, but and maybe some demonstration for our folks out there. But talk about how you got on these ideas and sort of how the product development. Now, some of the people listening to the show before, this might be a bit redundant, but for those who are maybe discovering you for the first time, I mean, Kenny and I and Ken Sinclair and others in the industry sort of dubbed you as the boy genius, even though you've been doing this for 18 years. But talk about your path a little bit, and then we'll get into some specific products.
Yeah, thank you. I think I entered into the market at the right time. It was around early 2000s, at the age of 18, coming to the US, seeing the buildings starting to talk to each other, almost like in a translator way. Each building had different protocols, it was talking different languages almost. And Tritium R2 came out at that time. And I had already known Allerton and Bacnet. And when I saw Tritium, I was very excited and learned it over a weekend. After that, getting to learn multiple protocols and growing up with the Frank brothers, almost, I was basically endowed with the technology overall.
Now, when you say growing up with the Frank brothers, let me just interrupt for you. We're talking, the guys who developed
Andy and Brian, right?
Yeah, and yeah. So, sort of grew up. Were you working with them? Were you hanging out with them? Were you guys friends, or were you just say you were working with their software? Be specific.
Initially, I was just working with the technology, right? Yeah. So we would go and ask them questions at the Niagara summits, and also we would get mesmerized on each summit when you remember when they showed the wireless sensors automatically getting into the Jace with Sedona running, in one of those events. So it was mesmerizing overall. So when the 2008 crash happened and they moved on, I did follow them, and this is basically the outcome of it overall. I call myself innovation worker, and you could say Brian Frank is Kubrick, and I would become his right arm.
So sort of like a protege that takes an idea, like Picasso moves on from the blue period to the rose period, and you pick up in the blue period and carry on in that tradition, sort of thing.
I'm trying. I hope so. If Sandstar becomes successful, then yeah, the statement would be true.
Well, hey guys, I got to break in here real quick. I just did a Controltrends search, talking with legends at the 2018 Niagara Summit, and that's an interview, Eric, that we did with Alper on the left and Brian Frank on the right. So yeah, we got a source document, its credibilities, and they both talk about the early days.
Yeah, well, let's put a link in the show notes so people can go back and watch that. Let's definitely save that link in. Let's put it in the show notes. But no, dude, this is so cool. So it's kind of like, in a way, you're getting to work with people that you have a lot of respect for and carry on their legacy. Because, like I say, they've moved on to some other things. But that's really cool, Alper.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, Alper, I wanted to get real into some of the into the weeds here with Anchor Labs. For instance, I do remember you being one of the first people that extolled the virtue of the edge controller, and how you were working, all your energies were to get ported Niagara or to get Sedona into an edge controller so that you could get the best of all worlds. You'd get the formidability to do engineering on the fly and everything, but it was at the controller level, so you had instant whatever. Tell us about the whole concept and how you developed those controllers.
So the controllers are based on pretty much the whole industry works on BeagleBone type devices, BeagleBone type hardware, and we are basically manufactured. We work with Solodyne to create custom hardware. And but when we looked into Sedona's initial goal was to create this abstraction layer for the controllers. Although they did have hardware-dependent kits. When a decade later, when Brian Frank created Haystack, that was the reason, creating the abstraction. And I was looking at Haystack and Sedona at the time. I was like, this needs to be merged in a way for the reasoning of the creation of Haystack, which is to abstract data from wherever it's coming from. And we created Project Sandstar from there, and we embedded into the controller where SkySpark lives in. So we became an OEM of SkyFoundry under the company named Oncolabs.
You know, I want to do a little investigative reporting because you mentioned Solidyne, and that's a product line that's been around for a long time. And, you know, I handled it back in the day. I think the gentleman's name was Baha. That founded
Ertürk.
Yes.
Ertürk.
Okay. Now, here's my question. Is there a Turkish connection here? Is he Turkish as well?
Yes, he is. Yeah.
Ah, there we go.
Actually, Ken introduced me to them.
Okay.
I was like, there's no one in the industry from my country. He's like, no, there is. There's Solidyne down there.
Well,
Ken Sinclair.
Yeah, Ken Sinclair. I'm going to tell you something. It was kind of cool because back in the day when I was handling them, Alper, you actually talked to it to program it. You pushed a button. You said, come on at such and such a time. And you voice program it by pressing a button, which was really cool. They had that. And the other thing they had was kind of cool. You could write a program. They had a little key that you could carry from store to store. It was a multi-location and plug the key in and it would download the program, which at the time was revolutionary type programming. And with COVID and all, we might see that technology come back where people don't want to touch sensors. They want to be able to talk to them.
Yeah, sure.
So you and your fellow countrymen, man, are coming up with some good stuff here.
Yeah, they were working on the BeagleBone hats. So yeah, I saw that what they're doing is great on hardware. I wanted to improve the software, and they did help me out within this journey.
Well, very cool.
You know, the thing that I think you really are digging into, and I'm on Project Haystack, and I'm looking at the Sandstar, and it's so extensive. You got to tell us a little bit about Sandstar and how it's an open source and how you got contributions coming from all over the world. But what's your end result? What's Sandstar going to turn into? What do you see in the future? Where's Sandstar going to be positioned in our industry?
Basically, it is the world's first open source hardware abstracted controls. There will be more. I think there might be more other devices out there, but it is basically utilizing Haystack as its core and Sedona as its core. And you're basically abstracting the inputs and outputs with Haystack tags. The positioning is that it could be used anywhere. It can be used on a camera. It can be used on an indoor air quality sensor that we installed in Turkey, Ankara for a Microsoft building. So it is basically, it can be used on any IoT technology. It doesn't have to be just input and output controller.
Okay, now Alper, you're saying a lot, and I think you answered this, but I want you to take another stab at it. Abstracted controllers, I'd never heard that term before, and I think you did a pretty good job of defining it. But for an owner out there that's listening, or a consulting engineer or an integrator, why should they care whether it's abstracted or not? I mean, you sort of explain what it is, but why is that important?
So, like, let's say today you have a PC and you write something on a Word document, you send it to a person that has Mac. They can open that and read that and write that to that document. Our controls industry does not work that way. You can only program the controller that is built by the manufacturer of it. By utilizing Sandstar, you would basically have a completely movable controls logic from the controllers. So basically, we have also signed up with contemporary controllers. They're BAS pies. We are going to call it EAC pies. The logic will be portable between two devices. So you'll become basically, you would choose which electronics board you would want to buy, and whoever is more innovative on the hardware will sell more hardware. But at the end of the day, the whole stack is on the same application.
So if you wanted to become a controls manufacturer based on your technology, you could just assemble the stuff and pick the best breed of parts and sort of roll your own, so to speak, right?
That is correct.
So do you see that happening? I mean, how is that going to affect our control manufacturers and vis-a-vis the way we're doing controls now?
It should change, right? We are talking about opening up the market, and the only way to open up the market goes through standardization of the protocol that we speak, and we already chose that, right? There's Bacnet out there just for the speaking language, but also the configuration file that you create on how the equipment runs needs to be open and abstracted as well. That way, hardware can be independent.
You've been accused of being disruptive much in your lifetime, Alper? This sounds very disruptive to me, Kenny.
Well, you know, I'm on the I'm on Project Sandstar, and I'm on Anchor Labs website, and I'm seeing some new stuff here, where you're growing, Alper, and I see you have a Haystack temperature controller. Tell us about the Haystack, Haystat.
Yeah, it is a Wi-Fi temperature humidity sensor that communicates through Haystack.
That's pretty cool. So I know that you were again, you were early adopter, and I remember asking you probably back there 2018 if you thought Project Haystack was going to be the future. I remember you and Brian both extolled, that it was just a matter of time that the tagging and semantics would become universally accepted, and basically manufacturers, everybody in the industry was going to adopt it. Engineers were going to insist on it because it took down all the barriers that slowed down, the opportunity to use these applications that you were coming up with. So from that time, 2018 to now, do you think we've actually seen that progression that you were anticipating of the adoption of Project Haystack?
I think so. I mean, if you look at it, Tritium is basically doing PX bindings with Haystack now. You have seen Google doing some other tagging model that works with Haystack and Brick together. I think Haystack is the agile way of doing tagging, where you can easily generate applications. I do believe Haystack is going to win at the end of the day for its flexibility and feature set.
Well, the one question I had to follow, and I'm sorry, is, we always think of how everything's evolving, like even Bacnet, they're going to try to do Bacnet Secure, SC, and everything. Do you think that there's a timeline where a protocol or the Project Haystack or Haystack tagging could actually evolve so quickly they would replace the protocols that we have in place now? Because aren't they redundant?
It is redundant if you think of the Bacnet IP to Haystack, because they're both running on the IP level, but Bacnet is still going to be there on the MSTP level, and converting to MSTP to IP, having the same language or same protocol would make much easier. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Well, it's, we interviewed Jamie Lee from Siemens last week, Alper, and, we're talking about the benefits of Haystack tagging and what it really means vis-a-vis economics. And, the short takeaway, and I'm not telling you anything you don't know, is that it just allows an owner or an integrator to get information much more quickly and less costly. Mm-hmm. It's a very cost-effective way to sort of get the information. So, I mean, obviously one of the key benefits of this is that things that you could before get, but were cost prohibitive, now you can get them very, very quickly. So it seems like Bacnet, Haystack, I tend to agree with you. I think has done a great job, and it seems like we're getting to critical mass. And so assuming that's the case, how do you see things 3 or 4 or 5 years down the line if Haystack continues at this trajectory, vis-a-vis what the controls landscape will look like?
I can speak from the point of my goals. I would love to see the hardwares open up more, multiple manufacturers, and having analytics at the edge where the architecture changes on the smart building space. Getting data from edge to cloud or send to star, almost they sound similar, would be much easier. And the stack for doing that is already here. It's just a matter of time. The market understands the power of the edge and what you can do with the edge.
Well, I got to ask Kenny a question here because we like to play a little game called Conspiracy Theory on Control Talk occasionally. And, Kenny, it makes me think a little bit of, the stories you hear about there being an electric engine or whatever invented many, many, many years ago. And you never hear about that technology because people were making too much money on the way things were now. So I guess, one of the questions would be, do you think Alper's in jeopardy of, if you show up missing, is it because this great technology is going to change the game in your opinion, Kenny, or
No,
is it just, it's got to happen?
Well, first of all, you're right. I mean, it has to be a transition period. You have the mature vendors that have just basically controlled, the environment that we live in. And, without that, stalwart support and those pillars that we all basically, evolved from, I think what Alper's doing is going to have its day, but it's going to work with a newer generation of people. I think so. What happens is, if you're in a large portfolio, you can't abandon all your legacy stuff, even though you want to try something and it appears to be less expensive installing it. And the wireless is a crazy feature that just, the world needs more of because it just makes sense, once we figure out what to do with those batteries. But I see Alper's efforts as a parallel path that as the legacies systems run out of gas and as a lot of these buildings were built in the 70s and 80s and 90s, and they're starting to really peter out. And there's a transition point where you've got both parallel paths running, and you just transition from MSTP even to IP, and you grab the new technology as you can do it.
Right.
But
what I'm wondering is if even these stalwart control manufacturers will continue to manufacture the boards and actually the physical hardware, and they'll just dump Alper's software in there.
They'll drown Alper for sure every chance they can. They're not going to let him rise to the top and feature him. What'll probably happen is what you and I said, I believe it was about 4 years ago, that one day they'll offer Alper an opportunity to buy him out, and he'll say, you can't, that's not enough. No price will ever get me. And all of a sudden they hit a number and Alper says, yeah, okay.
So Alper,
let's do it.
I'm curious if you're interested in adopting a tax deduction here, because if you want to adopt me, because I think Kenny's spot on, you're probably going to be the richest person we know here in about 10 years. So remember us when you're on your yacht and invite us to some of your parties. But listen, any way you can show us some of this stuff? I know you've done it in the past, but you got some updates. Do you mind?
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
All right, let's do that.
I am going to turn on a camera. So you're seeing a video feed. It's on this side, and we are within this browser here. We are connected to the green controller here. That is the Solidynes, and the one in the back is a BASPI. We are also connected to that device as well. So what I will do is I will open up Sandstar web editor. This is basically an application built into the browser to program Sandstar or Sedona. So everything is literally programmed right through the website, right through the browser, right through Chrome. So if you go basically sensor, you are seeing the temperature sensor of my room right now. There's like a heat load right behind that temperature sensor. You can see the temperature reading for this given point. And it is basically hardware abstracted. So your inputs are hardware abstracted, your outputs are hardware abstracted. So if you look at our output, you can see that our output is not BO1 anymore, it is discharge fan command. That way your logic is completely abstracted and everything is done in the browser. Another part of the application stack that is important is that it can actually, what I call it, a metamorphing controls. We define our inputs and outputs with this application called record editor. And once you have a defined cool command, it knows how many points are defined. So you can generate your logic that is to the most of the system. What I mean by is that you would have a single logic for a VAV and single file, and then you would check which points are defined on the controller. So if you have 4 stages of cool, this would say 4 points have been defined, and your logic basically would work accordingly. So if you have no cool, just like within this application, it's basically disabling the loop control and everything else. So this is the overall idea, and this controller communicates to the application built in SkySpark. We sell it as Oncolytic over Haystack. So we are basically, it enables it to communicate over Haystack. So in here, you can see the 78.35 that is on the controller right here, okay? So you can trend the data that is stored on the edge. And within this, going through this, I'm going to demonstrate a project that we have installed 2.5 years ago. And this project is clustered. So there's a mechanism called clustering where the edge device pushes the data to the cloud. It's pushing the data to your SkySpark Oncolytic instance in the cloud. So we're going to go into this Linton. This is basically a controller at the edge. This is the application giving us the data from the edge, clustered to our instance without doing any firewall configurations. And we have installed this around August 2018. And I am looking at the historical data of the system right from the edge. And so you can see that this is the time we installed it. And you can see we are turning the compressor on or off. And it has been communicating since 2008 up to this month through this Haystack model. And also, because it is already Haystack tagged, we did write a couple rules on this project where you can basically see the sparks that are happening on the system, fan short cycling, and you can look at why that had happened. So everything is built into the controller. Now you're going to say, this is great, but I still want to see my moving fan. We have built an application called Visualytic. Visualytic is basically visualization application that is built based on Haystack tags, and you built this graphics right within the browser of the stack. Also, within these controllers, we do have, in case you have an existing BMS system, we also have a Bacnet protocol built into them as well. So what this does is it reads the data and it converts it into Haystack as well, into a Haystack model. I think I have one that is running on device 94. If we go to here, I will be able to show you the Bacnet tagged version. So here's Bacnet Builder, and you can see Bacnet object instance is working one-to-one based on the project Sandstar. We do have project Sandstar working within these AV models. Other than this, other than clustered system, you do want to see these devices from your mobile phone. And what we have built for that is, I'm going to open up an application on my cellular phone. Hopefully no one is going to call me while doing that. So I'm logging into an application called Mobilytic. And we have a Mobilytic dashboard builder that just came up recently. So you build these applications with Mobilytic dashboard builder. And the way it works is that you drag and drop widgets, and then you link it to Exxon calls that is built onto Haystack. What you're seeing is at this site, all the average discharge temperatures from all the air handling units within this building is 64.15. The max is 72, min is 48. Here's your max, here's your min, and the average is, you can imagine. So you can see all your data in overviews with averages right from the home screen. You can also go to browse and go to an equipment and look at the data in a monthly or weekly view. You can even filter them if you want to filter them. Also, you can look at your notes at that equipment, your real-time data, and your sparks. So let's take a look at the Sparkvue. You can look at your sparks, your analytics results in a monthly view right on your phone, where things are not working correctly, efficiently, optimally. So you can also filter your basically sparks based on a site as well, or a rule as well. The other feature that we have here is that we have a barcode app. So you would basically print this on the controller, on the panel, wherever you want to print and put it there. So what you can do is you can go to the dashboard view, and you can go to menu, scan QR code, and it will basically scan the QR code and take you to that equipment right away. So you can see the equipment's historical data, notes on the equipment, real-time data of the equipment. You can see the sparks of that equipment, and so on and so forth. Finally, one of the main features that we have within the Sandstar is the ability to question a cluster right from the controller level. Yeah, the Sandstar web editors as Haystack, we are going to demonstrate it at the summit. So you can, we have a summit coming up on the 26th. Join us during that time.
Well, hang on a second. A summit. Yeah.
A summit. Tell us, 11 days from now. What is that? What's going on, Alper?
It is an online summit. A lot of the industry experts are talking about Edge. John Petsy's in there. Brian Frank, we will have a session. The sessions are going to be pre-recorded sessions, and we are basically educate the market on the Edge and what we have done with our product line.
I said, well done, Alper. I said, talk about name dropping, John Petsy, Brian Frank. That's already got, some headliners there too. That's great stuff. It's marvelous to see you progress with this and with such dogged determination. I remember being at some of those early summits and breakouts and wondering, meeting you, and then as you got involved with Controltrends, we're seeing you develop products, solutions. You used to be pretty much the go-to guy for graphics and services. And now you provide the different, you're an OEM for SkySpark. And how does that work? Do you work in a regional thing, or do people come to you and you sign them up? Because you seem to have a thriving business there, but how do you get customers to different parts of your business segments?
So the graphics business has evolved on its own. That is being managed by Akim. And the SkySpark side of things is that because we are staying, we don't basically define rules that are written on SkySpark. That kind of helps us because we are neutral. We don't get to the end user with rule definitions or doing consulting, and that puts us into a better position. Overall, I guess we are known at this point within the industry as well with what we are trying to accomplish. I think that's also helping us.
Great, good stuff.
Well, very cool. So, Kenny, you asked that question about the voice activated. So re-ask that one if you would, because that's a great question.
Sounds good. Alper, you mentioned a couple of things here that I took a note here, and I wanted to come back to it about the capability. I mean, how far off are we from when our commercial command centers for facility managers that come in to work on any given day, or they got their phone, and as they get that near field, or as they get closer to the geofencing, they come towards work, all of a sudden their phone starts to populate with information about they're going to go to work today and what they see. How far are we away from the commercial space, mirroring the residential space where everything's going to be voice activated? You walk into the office or command center and you say, hey, show me my my greatest pain points. What are we going to do today? And because you've already got these rules and you're doing these efficiency optimizations and performance evaluations and fault diagnostics or whatever, are we far off from a verbal kind of a conversational relationship with people that run buildings? Are they going to be able to go into their office and say, like you can do now, turn on the lights, turn on the TV? Of course you say, hey Siri first, or whatever your operating OS is. But are we approaching that? Is that something you see inevitably is the most desirable way to do this?
I think we can get there. The only thing that needs to be written is Haystack, communicating to basically Alexa, and Alexa understanding the human created sentences and converting into Exxon queries. That can that be done and improved? I'm sure it can be done. We can actually utilize artificial intelligence turning plain English into Exxon queries, and it would constantly improve over time. It can definitely be done.
Cool.
Well, Alper, man, I can't tell you how much we appreciate this. I think that the Franks got to be proud of you. I know John Petsy is. We're proud of you, man. It's been great sort of seeing your meteoric rise. And, there was a saying once, if you want to control the future, create it. And it seems like you are on your way to doing that. So one final question. People want to know more. What's the best website for them to go to?
They can go to oncollabs.com, or if they want to look into our graphics business, it's bassg.com. And I'm inviting everyone to our online summit on August 26th. And the website for that is summit.oncollabs.com.
Cool. And if you'll send us a link to that, Alper, we'll put that in, make sure we get that in for you as well.
Thank you so much.
Take care, brother. Appreciate you. Have a great one.
See you, Alper.
Thank you.
Good job.
Well, Kenny, I tell you what, I think that our introduction was not quite descriptive enough or lofty enough for what Alper's up to. What do you think, man? We've watched him since the early days, and man, he is rocking and rolling.
I agree with you. 18 years old, came to the U.S. from Turkey, and just get into the flow of things, and then really develop some very, very distinguishable technologies. We are going to post that Talking with the Legends 2008 Niagara Summit. It's a great interview with Alper and Brian Frank, and we were there with Controltrends, and kind of really lays down how the incredible legacies of Andy and Brian Frank. But Brian, the way he just marshaled through the world of our technologies, our frameworks. He created Sedona, he created the Niagara framework, and then he goes on to do the Project Haystack, but all along Alper grew side, kind of in the off to the side. He was keeping that technology always there, always viable. And then to see him come up with Sandstar, it's like the fruition of all his hard work. The guy really knows what he's doing, and like you said, he probably is at the point where, in order for him to get economy of scale, he's either he needs pocket money, deep pockets, and as you said before, everybody seems to have a number somewhere out there. If it hits right, we could see Alper taking the next elevator up. Yeah,
well, let's hope so. I mean, because I think he's a guy that deserves it. Was it 2008 where we did that interview out at Project Haystack? And
no, that was 2018. In fact,
18, yeah. Remember, we were out there and
Talking with Legends, the 2018 summit.
God, was
we
that
actually
fun.
have that one of the ControlTalk now. So, like I said, we'll put a link to that actual post.
Yeah,
on the.
That was some good stuff, man. I tell you, that's one thing I miss about traveling is we've had a lot of fun interviewing folks. You remember the time we were down in Orlando and there were concurrent sessions going on? There was like the audio and video sort of conference that was going on next door to the Controltrends. Remember we went talked to some of those people, and they had a stage with a green screen and all that. We did a live control talk now, and
Oh yeah, with Mark P talk, yeah.
Mark being the deal, and we had everybody come up and look like a regular talk show. That was back even earlier. That was maybe about 2010 or 12 or whatever. So we've done some fun stuff, Kenny Smyers, along those lines.
First or second Realcom. I remember that real well. That was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun. We've had some fun times along the way, and Alper has been one of the great people we've met along the way as well. But well, what else is going, Kenny Smyers, before we hop off and I go jump under a rock and hide for a couple of days?
No, we have just a lot of things going on. Again, there's a lot of preparations being made now for the Realcom IBCon show out there in the Gaylord Rockies in Denver, right outside of Denver Airport, or real close to Denver Airport. So that they're going, that is a very meaningful event coming to bear. Leroy Walden spearheading a lot of the SBIS, Smart Building Integrator Summit. So they get a lot of really great, the agenda is going to be remarkable because it's going to be virtual and live. I've heard great things about the digital presentation is going to be cutting edge, and it's going to set a new precedent on events. There's a big thing about Jim Young and Howard Berger is they've got this can-do attitude. In other words, they understand the implications of COVID-19, how important it is and how important it is to stay safe. But you can still move intelligently forward using the technologies, using smart building, advanced technologies that minimize everything, minimize your risk, minimize your exposure. So I think it'll be a great lesson. It'll be a great collection of technologies and pools of application, so that we'll have probably the best, business case to continue on. So, we just had another setback here in our local schools, postponed the start date for school again, the Whitfields, which is our big high school thing. And, in Western Pennsylvania, high school football is humongous. I would go to a football game, didn't even know the high school, didn't go to it, but I'd still, the roar of the crowd, the Friday Night Lights thing is really remarkable. And to think that's all shut down still, it's heartrending that all these young kids put all that time and energy into it and they can't play, Yeah,
no, it's absolutely crazy. And, it's fun because, or I shouldn't say fun, but maybe it's a sign of the times to come. But, Evie and Axel, my 7-year-old daughter, Evelyn, and my 5-year-old son, Axel, Evie's in first grade now and Axel's in kindergarten, or I think Evie is in second grade, but watching as they go to school now. And you come in and you see Evie in her class and hats off to their teachers, both of them. But, they've got the Zoom meeting going on and you hear the teacher in there talking and Evelyn gets up to do something. And the teacher goes, "Now, Evelyn, come back and sit down." And but the teacher's just doing a phenomenal job, right? Using Zoom as a tech. Well, it's actually, I think it's Microsoft something or other, but just doing a great job teaching the kids. They've got their schedule. They take their break, and so Evelyn will set an alarm and go take a 15-minute break, or go up break 45 minutes for lunch or whatever, and comes back. So she's really learning to be responsible for herself, and go away and then come back. But I don't think her education, the actual learning part of that, is suffering at all. Quite on the contrary, I think that, at least in her case, I think it's pretty phenomenal, how well it's working. And then Axel's, he's in kindergarten, but, you listen to the teacher and now they're using media where they'll read books to them. And then you'll hear the teacher and they're going, "Okay, everybody, take a piece of paper and a pencil out and draw the letter A, right? And then hold it up." And, you'll see Axel hold it up and the teacher will look at it and go, "No, actually, you got to, do it like this." And then she'll hold something back up. And, so their education, that part of it does not seem to be suffering at all, Kenny Smyers. It just seems it's different, right? And,
it's evolving, crazy.
And part of me saying that is I want to applaud how well their teachers have adapted and what a wonderful job they're doing, making the best of this situation.
I do. I agree too. And again, I think it's the attitude is that, it doesn't stop. It just evolves. Like you said, the procession, we're going this way and all of a sudden something happened, and the energy and all those talent and all that innovation, it's just redirected, but it's still proceeding forward. And the end result is, I'm glad you say that, because I don't have a really good handle on any direct experience or relationship with somebody going through that. But I know myself when I was a kid, I would have had a hard time to do that. They would have been giving me some kind of medication, because I don't think I could have sat in a chair myself with my own volition, even with my parental, guardrails, because so something's going on. I think it's so cool though that again, it's evolving, and I think this has a corollary. We talk about residential and how we have smart homes now. We take that expectation of smart homes to the office now, and we expect smart buildings. We really truly expect smart buildings. Well, imagine if children are growing so good with digital and this interface with one of the platforms, whether it's Zoom or Microsoft, they're going to expect that when they grow into professionals. They're going to expect, why can't we do it? Why do we need to do that? Let's use this. I'm used to doing this. I'm used to being parked in a very comfortable environment with access to all the technology that I could communicate as well as if I was in person. So I think you can see some real advancements, in the way we socialize, the way we do business. I know that the sales meetings that we're having, we're actually realizing that, you're not going to drive in a car very often to meet people. All these big meetings that were always scheduled, we just had another one get canceled or delayed or whatever you want to call it. And so in place of it, there you go. You got to go to another Zoom meeting. Well, what do you do to a person that's gone through 6 hours of Zoom meetings in one day? I mean, what's the fatigue, or where's the burnout on that?
Well, no, you're right, and I think to your point, I think it's more difficult for people our age who really thrive and love the the face-to-face social interaction. That's where what we were born to, and that's what we're used to. And even before the COVID came along, the younger people were, again, more adept. You and I have talked about it on the show long before COVID, that, the younger people are more comfortable doing, using the smartphone, using chat, using emails and stuff like that. Even when it comes to customer support, I want to pick up the phone and talk to a human being. A lot of our younger folks, they're a lot more comfortable just going to chat or whatever and dealing that way. So this was sort of coming anyway. And where I want to sort of tie it back to is that, getting back to Jim Young and Howard Berger with Realcomm Ivacon, those guys are early adopters. And if you want to know how it's going to be, this is a pretty good indication. They're taking this huge conference where people, look to go to get new ideas. And I think they're adopting and adapting to, the current, state of affairs. And I think it's going to be a great indication of how things are going to be. So I applaud those guys. Hopefully get Jim Young on the show here in the next couple of weeks to talk about it. But it's like, we used to say, my teacher, Marshall Thurber, used to say, you got, structural changes and cyclical changes. Cyclical changes, you just try to time the change, like the stock market's going to go up and down, and your strategy there is to time it. Structural changes is, adapt or die. And I think we're in the midst of a structural change. And I think if you're paying attention, it's a great opportunity. So let's cycle back again to, just a possible new world. Okay. And outside of the fact that, schools for a lot of people are, a way to have people, you got your kids go to school so you can go to work, right? So, let's just be candid. At a certain level, schools are our babysitters, right? The other thing is, we look at schools as a way for our kids to get socialized, right? Because, they have that interaction with other kids. Putting that aside, and at least my personal experience is, if you look at how it's going now with the online learning, I mean, imagine if you were able to figure those other two things out, right? So people were able to, have their kids taken care of and the socialization aspect taken care of. You and I have got a pretty good feel for what it takes to keep the actual physical location of schools up and running, right? Imagine if you did not have that overhead of the physical schools, right? And you weren't having to maintain those buildings or build those buildings, and somehow you got that dialed in. I mean, how much money would be freed up to pay teachers more money, to take the money and, help fund the police departments or whatever else? I mean, it would be a huge, influx of cash, right? And so I'm just thinking that, just from a number standpoint, and we've talked about this before, businesses and people haven't had to invest money in this sort of, stay at home, work sort of mentality. And, the mean counters are going to come back and go, well, wait a minute, we've already invested in having, our employees work at home. We still want to have an office space. We just don't need as much square footage, but because we have most of our people working from home. So I think it's going to be a brave new world. And I think if you want to be part of that, you can hope that it's different than it's going to be. And I'm not saying it's going to be this way. It could go back to the fact that as soon as COVID's over, everybody goes, Let's get back to the buildings. I just want to go back in and, I want my cubicle back. I want to go, I want to sit in traffic and go to work every day. It could be that too. I don't know.
I think, again, no, I think, the negative externalities of having an industry like people coming and going, inhaling and exhaling through buildings. We have a very large building in the Pittsburgh area that it's amazing that at full capacity, you could have 10,000 people in it. At its best term, maybe 2019, third quarter, might have been like 90% occupied. And then to see it now and to go in there, it's like a ghost town. And the expense, because they've got to maintain that building as though it's fully occupied. And even though it's 1/10 occupied or 1/20th occupied, the expense to keep it fully occupied, because it's kind of like a cat and mouse. If they don't perform and that building isn't up to the standards that those tenants expect, and they've got a reason to, attack the lease and try to get out of it. And then, so the tenant's saying, no, whatever you guys signed. We have numerous incidences. But you know what? I think, again, it's so funny because when you said that stuff and I had this flash, I remember family members in Pittsburgh here would say that they were never going to go to an ATM. That when they stopped doing, teller services, that was the end of it. They weren't going to work with that bank anymore. And I remember one particular uncle that said he would never put gas in his own car. The self-service thing, that's insanity. It's nuts. It's dangerous. It's dirty. It's what people need to work. And look at this. So now, the world has just flown by that so much that you can actually do everything you need online banking. You can, go day and night, 24/7, put gas in your car without any interruptions or obstacles. It's so fluid, And I think that's the adoption that'll slowly but surely come into whatever obstacles we have right now, like letting yourself in, touchless entry and everything. I just read an article here of all the touch points that you could eliminate in a building so that you can reduce the spread of contact, exposure to anything, whether it's COVID-19 or somebody sneezed, whatever. The whole idea is that if you really and truly put your smart technology to work, you eliminate so many of these touch points. And so what will happen? These brilliant people will create these applications to further that touchless world. All right, I think we're wrapping this up, eh?
Let's do it, big dog. So again, a special thanks to our sponsor this week, Johnson Controls, and Alper, our man from BASSG and Project Sandstar. Thank you so much, Alper, for all you do, the products and the vision you bring to our industry. And with that, Kenny Smyers, we'll see you next week. And remember, be bold, stay in control, stay relevant, stay positive, look for the opportunity, and look at a young kid and tell him, you are the future. Remember me when you're in charge.
Indeed, Eric.
Indeed, Kenny Smyers. And that is a wrap.
The basic idea is that there's a groove that I can follow that's exactly right for exactly right for
Sometimes when I try to reason, you don't seem to listen.